Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the first interview I'm doing here in Los Angeles. I'm trying to show you that you can reach high levels as a programmer without being like a genius. I remember when I started, I was thinking that people working for the big tech companies are like geniuses who are in a secret community, and it's not for everyone. But it turned out that I managed to get an internship for Google, and it wasn't that secret. So I'm trying to bring interesting people as Cian here to talk more about their experience and how did they get a job that's a dream job for a lot of people. Cian, you are right now in the junior year at
That's
university,
right. Yeah.
and you're from Ireland. Can you tell us more about yourself? What were you doing before programming? What other stuff are you into?
Well, before I was into programming, I was into just general computer stuff. I got my first computer at a young age, and I spent the whole time just messing around with it, mostly breaking it and then having to figure out how to fix it.
Breaking it in a way like taking parts out?
Yeah, pretty much. But also like trying different operating systems or things like that. Like, I had no idea what I was doing, and I mostly just learned by messing up and having to fix it. Yeah.
And at what age have you got your first computer?
I think I was 12 years old when I got my first computer.
Okay, so it was not like people these days get it. They get before knowing how to read or write, and they know how to search videos on YouTube, and that's crazy. And when did you got your internet connection? Because this is another big thing.
Yeah, I didn't get my internet connection until I was, I think, 15 or 16 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. I lived out in the countryside, away from any big town, so I had to travel into the library if I wanted internet access until I was 15 or 16. Yeah.
Okay, and how would you get your operating systems? Like, how would you download them without internet?
Well, what I would do is I would find somewhere like in the nearest town with the best internet, and I would spend about 6 hours sitting there just downloading all new stuff, as much stuff as I could get, and that would have to last a full week of no internet access until I went into the town again.
Yeah.
So I had to batch all my stuff into one.
Yeah, I remember when I started programming, my parents took me to their to my grandparents where I didn't have internet, so I was trying to get as much articles as possible with me, and without having the ability to ask anyone, I needed to figure stuff on my own, and that helped me a lot. Did you feel that with installing distributions and getting into errors and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't just Google it and blindly run whatever commands came out. I had to actually learn what the commands did. Otherwise, if I ran into something else, I'd have no idea how to fix it.
How did you learn them?
Mostly just reading as much documentation and watching videos.
What kind of videos? Like, how were you able to watch them?
Yeah, I used to use just videos or man pages or whatever I could get my hands on. So I would often download the videos in advance, like an hour-long tutorial on everything to do with the ls command, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, so you already constructed some kind of background, even though it wasn't programming before hearing about writing code. Yeah.
So I was considered good with computers in my family. I would fix problems and all this kind of thing, but I never actually learned. It was a while before I actually learned how to program. It always looked like magic to me, and just like way too complicated, and it was just so different from anything else I had done that I just kind of avoided it almost. But eventually I tried it out, and it turned out to be pretty doable. It took a lot of work, but eventually I learned the different ways I could do things. And same as learning anything else, I would just read a whole bunch of articles or download a whole bunch of videos or yeah.
And how was your first experience? When was your first interaction with the code?
I think one of the first things I ever did was I made an application in Visual Basic that could calculate the tax on certain items.
How old were you back then that you were already concerned about taxes? And
I was I was maybe 15 or something.
15.
Yeah.
Did they make you pay taxes in Ireland at 15?
It was just like taxes, sales tax on items. So literally all it did was it was a nice GUI that multiplied whatever number you gave it by 1.21 and gave that back to you. Nothing fancy at all.
And how did you hear about Visual Basic?
I think it just came up when I was looking around Microsoft's website, probably. So I would download, the latest version of Windows Vista, the Service Pack or whatever. And Visual Studio was one of the things on the website, so I downloaded that as well. And,
really? And you were so curious, whoa, what's this thing? Let's try it out.
Yeah. So I tried it out and I was like, wait a sec, this is programming. I don't know how to program. But it turned out to be pretty okay.
So you're self-taught?
Self-taught, yeah.
Okay, so you did your program which calculated the tax, and what came next?
I actually didn't program much after that. Like, it was probably a year and a half after that.
So you did that and then stopped completely?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, well, now I've done it, so I can move on. I can do something else. But I got back into it when I heard about a programming Olympiad that is run in Ireland. So my teacher had given me a leaflet that he thought I'd be interested in, which was about the All-Ireland Programming Olympiad.
What was the teacher subject? What did he teach?
So it was the subject was technology, which is it sounds like it's programming, but it's actually not. It's mostly sort of robotics work and plastics and things like that.
So you weren't studying programming at school?
No, not really. We had done small like flowchart based programming, stuff like Scratch, but very little really.
Yeah, so this is one thing I want to point out. So a lot of people from Romania asked me, oh, I don't study programming at school, can I still learn it? What's your opinion?
Absolutely, yeah.
You're the living example that it's possible to work for Google without just doing programming at school.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, so you only did the tax program, and then you're hearing about this kind of contests like the Ireland Olympiad.
Yeah.
And how did you prepare for it, or how was it?
So the way it worked was there was a first round which you could do by yourself just at home, and you had a bunch of weeks to do it, so loads of time. So I read the questions and I was like, I have no idea how to do this, this is far more difficult than calculating the tax. But I just Googled, what's a good programming language to learn for contests and things like that, and C++ came up.
So you were having internet at that time?
Yeah, okay. I had internet at that point. So I started reading tutorials on C++, how to get input and how to send output, and I started like solving the problems. So they were in order of difficulty. So the first one was very easy. It was like add two numbers together, and then they got harder and harder. So I was on problem 3 out of 6 before I learned what a for loop was.
Okay. Yeah. How many were there in total?
I think there was 6 problems in total.
6 problems?
Yeah.
Okay, and the third problem was using for loops?
Yeah.
And did you qualify for the next round?
I qualified for the next round, yeah. I went to the capital city and they locked us in a room for 5 hours in front of a computer with no internet.
Yeah, I know how it feels. It was the same way. Yeah.
It was surprising. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't do very well the first round, in that contest, but I was expecting that much. But it really got me. It got me into programming. It really motivated me. I was like, you know, I did this much and I qualified for it. I should keep going. I should try better. And the next year, the year after that, I came third in the contest.
Oh, congratulations!
So, third in Ireland, yeah.
So was there for all age groups, or were separate?
It was all age groups from 12 to 18, I think.
Okay, yeah. We have like a separate division for each age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty impressive. So overall, Ireland, you got the third after the first year of writing code.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask you before, so you said that before getting hooked by the national phase, you learned on your own. What kept you motivated of solving the 6 problems? Because I imagine it was really hard and you didn't know if you did them correctly or not. You didn't know, am I doing the right thing? Am I not?
Yeah, I had no idea if I was going in the right direction or if I was going to fail totally. I guess what I found motivating was that the difficulty it got more difficult quite slowly. So I found good basic problems and I started there. So the new stuff was only introduced very, very slowly.
Okay.
So I think that's something that really helped. I think it helped to go at my own sort of pace.
Okay, so coming back, you were third place the next year. I assume you prepared for the whole year?
That was actually my last year.
Okay.
So that was the year before I went to college, but I knew there was competitions in college, so I did keep preparing, and I got into college. I got into a good college and a good course.
Did the competition help you for admission, or?
Yeah. So the course I did, you had to already know a little bit of programming before you started. So there was actually, that was my very first programming interview, was to get into college.
So they have an interview in order to admit you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was my first ever coding interview, pretty much, and it was kind of like the Google interviews, except obviously, much easier. But it all follows the same sort of format.
So it was algorithms and
algorithms and just like, can you put code together that does this kind of thing? So I kept preparing because I knew there was competitions in college and all of this. And when I got to college, I found a team, and we entered a whole bunch of competitions.
Like
and we
ICPC
and some national ones. So Google have one, which is Hashcode, which is very good. Then there's 2 Irish ones, which are UKIEPC and IRLCPC. So they were good ones, and we practiced together a lot for those. I mean, none of us really knew what we were doing, but we worked together and we found some good resources to learn from, and we kind of figured it out together.
So you pushed, each of you had to push the other 2 forward.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a nice thing to have, like a community.
Yeah.
What do you think it was the impact? Did it help you a lot, or do you think you could have made it on your own without them?
I could probably have managed the same thing on my own, but I think it would have taken a longer amount of time. I think having other people to ask your questions to and to bounce ideas off of can speed up the process a lot. Yeah. And it doesn't even need to be in person or anything like that. You can just ask people online or something like that. Yeah.
Were you on any discussion groups, like online discussion groups or websites you were reading and talking with other people on?
I didn't do too much. I didn't do too much stuff online. I do read a lot of news online with programming, and that's where I keep up to date with what's going on. So something like Hacker News or something on Reddit. That's where I get my programming news from, so I can follow the trends. But I don't usually interact much online. Yeah, mostly just in my circle of friends.
Okay. So you're already in a community. Okay, so you got into contest. Have you also been into software developing competitions like hackathons, or maybe have you tried to build some personal projects while doing contests, or how was the first part of the college?
So because for my degree you needed to know a bit of programming already, in the first 2 weeks that we started, they gave us a little bit of programming things to work on.
Talk louder?
Yeah, sorry. So for the first little while, they gave us some programming tasks to work on, just small ones, and then very early on, they just said, okay, now make a group and work on a project.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a group of 5 people, including myself, and we worked on this RSS reader project. Mm-hmm. So we weren't. So if they hadn't told us that, we probably would have done a bunch of projects on our own, because all of us were we like to develop stuff, doing the software
Mm-hmm.
development as well as the competitive programming. But really doing it as a team, we learned a lot from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we did a lot of projects as well as just the pure algorithms and stuff like that for programming.
Did you do only the projects required for school, or also personal ones? Or
So we started with only the projects for school, but as we got more comfortable with developing projects and getting used to things like that, we started entering hackathons, and we did projects on our own as well, just individually.
Okay.
So we started with mandated projects, and then we kind of did our own thing after that. Yeah, and it was super, super helpful. I learned so much through projects, actually having to apply the skills that I've learned.
Yeah, that's so cool. So how did you hear about Google, like that you can actually apply? Because there's the company, but I think for a lot of people, they don't believe that they can really get there. Like, oh, is it possible to really work for Google? It's just like a fantasy.
Yeah. So I had never even considered working for Google. It was a distant dream. It wasn't even worth considering what would that be like, because it wasn't something that I could do, But I had some friends in the year above me in college, and they had worked at Google after the summer of their first year, and they encouraged us to apply. They said, the worst thing they can do is say no, essentially. So
so basically you're in the same position as you were before.
Yeah.
But you talked with someone at Google, or at least exchanged email.
Yeah. So we kind of just applied, not expecting anything at all. We expected to just be thrown out straight away. But a couple of us got callbacks, and they liked our CVs, so we went and we did some interviews, and the interviews, they took a while to get back to us, so we were all nervous.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
But a couple of us actually got through, and we got internships at Google, which was just so surprising for us, because we're just normal people, essentially. We didn't think of ourselves as incredible programmers, blah blah blah. The whole idea of what a Google programmer could be like. We were just normal people, but we still went for it, and we actually got it.
Okay, so you and your friends applied at Google, and some of you got some internships. How were the others? Were there any interesting stories among them? Some exceptional people like you?
I think everyone had their own story of how they got to there. My best friend, who was part of the group that went to Google, he originally started programming about the same age as me. I think he was around 15 or 16, but he didn't even have a computer.
Wait, did he start learning without having a computer?
Yeah. Yeah. He only had a really old Nokia phone, and what he did was he downloaded the Java docs online, and he was somehow able to type Java code into his phone and get it to compile and run on the phone. So that's how he learned. He didn't even have a computer. It wasn't even a smartphone that he was using. It was just a regular dumb Nokia phone that he had somehow managed to get to run his own code.
Like the one with the keyboard,
Yeah.
the one which you can run a tank over him and not get destroyed.
Yeah, something like that. It's crazy. So he did eventually get a computer, yeah, and also a nice Google internship.
Google internship. And what's he doing now? Like, is he a millionaire or?
He is doing a research project at our college for the summer, and we both start back for our final year in September.
Yeah.
In a few months.
You're paving your ways into millions of dollars and huge success.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And what was your resume and the CVs of the other people who got the interviews? What do you think it's important to have there?
What I think would be important is having some sort of, I think the most useful thing you could have is some sort of project. Because essentially when you go to the internship, when you actually do it, you're going to be given a project and they're going to expect you to be able to build this. So if you can show them, hey, I already have this project, here's the code, you can like look at it and you can see that I'm capable of this internship, then you've got a very good chance. And it doesn't even need to be anything incredible. It just needs to be something on your own to show that you enjoy programming and that you're capable of it. Yeah, I think just doing that much will set you apart, and I'm pretty confident that anyone could get an interview just with something like that.
And how did you apply? Did you apply online or did you get a referral?
I applied online. Yeah, I applied through the just normal application process.
Like careers.google.com, and that was it?
That was it. That was all I needed. Yeah.
Well, I assume that you had an impressive resume, because there are people who apply online. I don't know if at Google, but for other big tech companies who like have those good CVs. Like they go to contests, they have personal projects, and like they throw the CV in the black hole, and they don't hear from anyone at the company. So yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's always worth applying a bunch of places, like, because I got the Google interview and eventually the Google internship, but I applied to a lot of places, and actually Google was the only one that got back to me. Google was the only one that even gave me an interview. So it's worth applying everywhere, because you mightn't be good enough for some like small tiny little company, but you might be good enough for Google, which is almost counterintuitive. Yeah, that's right. And after you have Google on the CV, you can get into other places, because he was at Google. He has to be smart. You get a lot more callbacks when you have Google on your CV. Yeah.
Okay, so you got at Google. What did you do there? What was your project, and what are you doing now?
So I got into Google, and my project was in the Switzerland office, so in Zurich. I was working with the Google Maps team as a site reliability engineer. And essentially what they do is they keep the whole infrastructure running. That's pretty core to their job description. And my project specifically was to do with how they release new versions of maps. So what my project did was it took a whole bunch of requests that people using maps had sent to Google, and it sent them one half to the live service, one half to the version that was running, and then one half to the new service that they were going to replace it with. And then it would compare the results. It would check to make sure that they
don't crash.
Yeah.
And if they crash, they don't crash for too many people.
Yeah. So they would check to make sure that they behave the same, that nothing has changed too differently.
Okay, so that was the first summer. And what did you do afterwards?
So I did another internship the next year with a different company called Arista Networks. I did that one in Dublin in my in the same city as my university. That was pretty good. I was working with the tools team there, developing a whole new infrastructure for how they would build the binaries they were using. So I did that internship, and now I am back at Google again, this time in LA, so third city, and I'm working on something similar enough to what I was doing in my first Google internship. So it's to do with testing a large chunk of systems, how they work, and comparing the results.
Okay, so how was working for? I assume it was a much smaller company than Google compared to working at Google. What does it look like? What do you think is different?
So one of the biggest differences I noticed was when I was in Google, the office had some number of 1,000 people, whereas with the other company, it was an office of maybe 50 people. So I really got to know everyone a lot better, and we had much smaller outings and all this. It was still a good company. There was still snacks and food around the place. And
really? Because yeah. I started laughing and thinking, you will say, you don't get free food there.
No, I don't think I could go without the free food.
Okay.
So it was pretty cool. It was a different sort of dynamic having a smaller office, all right, but still a good experience. Yeah.
And what were the biggest challenges you encountered through your whole computer science career, let's say?
Ooh, that is a difficult one. So I think one of the most challenging things I found was when working in a team with my peers in the computer science course, or with a team at a company. One of the hardest things to do is communication. It's really hard to do well. So you can be the best programmer in the world, but if you're working on something that doesn't actually help the team, it doesn't really matter, So I think one of the most challenging things that I really had to learn to adjust to was working well in a team, where everyone coordinates, everyone, you do code reviews, all of the good practices. And a big thing is learning to compromise, because you might think you're the best programmer in the world, but you are probably not. There's only one person who's the best programmer in the world. I don't know who it is, but there can only be one. So learning to compromise is a very important part, I think.
Like when there's two different opinions regarding something, or just stop working on your stuff and helping the others, or what do you mean?
So both of those really, but what I really have in mind, I think, is when you have two different perspectives on where the project should go. So you might think the project should look like this or behave like this, and someone else might think it should look differently or behave differently. And it's in those kind of situations where it's very hard to say one thing is right and the other thing is wrong, that you really have to try and see the other person's perspective and figure out why they like the other thing better, and see if you can come to some sort of agreement. And programming isn't going to help you on that one. It's it's a super important part of software development, but it's nothing to do with programming. So I think I think the stuff outside of programming that everyone kind of forgets about a little bit is probably been one of the biggest challenges. Because you can't go online and follow a tutorial on how to talk to people. Well, you can, but it mightn't be very effective.
And at some points you have to be really specific to the subject you're talking. You can do a general how to talk to people and be able to talk to people at, let's say, family anniversary, and also at when you're hitting the deadline, or you're not hitting the deadline. Everyone's tensed up, and you still need to work in order to make things be well. It's
your experiences can vary a lot, all right? And you have to be prepared for it a little bit.
I think everyone has that in the first in the first project, when he doesn't really know how to talk to the other people and how to see their perspective, because in my case I like the experience, so I was not able to see the things from the other perspective because I didn't have their experience, so that was also a challenge for me.
Yeah.
And afterwards it's like opened my mind. It makes sense. He was right.
Yeah, no, I've definitely felt very strongly that I was right on things and then being totally wrong. You know, it happens. But everyone has to learn it at some point. Everyone goes through that. Nobody goes into a software development project and is perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to add some other things before I? So do you want to add some other things before I give you my last two questions?
I think I'm ready for the last questions.
Okay.
With them.
So there's actually one question which I want to divide in two parts. So what's your advice for people who want to get into programming, who haven't written yet any code? And what's your advice for people who already written some code, maybe they do some jobs, but they want to level up their career?
Okay. I would say for someone who hasn't written any code yet, I know it sounds obvious, but write some code. So, you know, if you're reading tutorials or you're like Googling what is the best programming language to start with, and you spend days and days researching it, you're not really moving forward much. I'd say the best thing to do is to pick something and go for it. And if you make a mistake, you can go back, but you'll have learned from it, you know?
Yeah, and you still waste less time because you're developing your brain to think like a programmer.
Yeah. Don't try to do everything perfectly straight away, you know? Get something going and just keep moving forward on it. So find some tutorial, follow it, and then like play around with it a bit, you know, change some of the variables or change how something works and make mistakes, you know, because that's essentially how I learned, and that's a great way for someone who hasn't programmed yet to learn. For the second part of the question, if someone's already done some programming and you're a little bit more comfortable with you know, the concepts and how to write something small, I would say start building a little bit of a portfolio. I mean, you may have some small bits already, but I would say keep leveling up, essentially. Keep tackling something a little more outside of your comfort zone. You know, maybe you've done some sort of like command line application. Maybe try adding a GUI or try making some sort of web-based thing. Because
like things which scare you a bit and which you don't know how to implement from beginning to the end.
Yeah. Because usually the scariest thing about something like that is just the fact that you haven't done it before. You know, once you kind of pull back the curtain and actually look at how something works, generally it pretty much makes sense, unless it's JavaScript. Yeah. So I would say start building a portfolio and start looking towards internships, because those are very, very helpful. They'll teach you very quickly what it actually takes to work as a software developer.
Okay, thanks a lot, Cian, for all the interesting stories and the great advices, and thanks a lot for watching this interview until the end. Don't forget to hit the like button if you got some valuable information from it, and don't forget also to subscribe to our channel. There are more interviews coming, more interesting people coming up to share their knowledge and help you start out or help you get better at coding. I was Petro, and don't forget to share the video if you liked it. Goodbye.